put my gloves on. There is a bitterly cold wind blowing up over the reservoir here, and I am freezing cold right now. It's an example of, I came out here to shoot, didn't know what I was going to shoot, and then nature kind of provided. So I've been working on this composition for a while because it's kind of slightly different than what I usually do. Usually I try to single out a subject. This, I'm using a wider angled lens, capturing some foreground elements here with this embankment that falls off a cliff. And then there's a big rocky outcropping. That's really cool. And then way off in the distance, you have the dam out there. I'm still kind of finagling it. I don't know if that's gonna... All right, so I think I figured out the framing on this one. I'm at somewhere between 50 and 64 on this lens, which is, you know, where the markings are. f11, shutter speed is 1/80th, ISO 100 as usual, 2-second timer. I'm focused on across the reservoir at the dam pillars, those support pillars. I don't mind if my foreground is a little blurred because there's not really much interest in it right now. The light is just shrouded in clouds, so it's more of a moody shot, a little more atmosphere, but I don't mind it. I rather think it looks kind of cool. I kind of want to do a little bit of an isolated shot of the pillars, the piles, these things right here. I'm going to do a pixel shift. I'm going to experiment with this. Do a pixel shift and see if that gives me a nice, flat, non-warped panoramic. My face feels so numb right now. I feel like I'm barely talk. So what I'm setting up here is I'm going to make a pixel shifted panoramic crop down. A few people have suggested it, and I'm going to try it out. The conditions have to be, well, you can't have too many moving subjects. So we're out. Hopefully the atmosphere doesn't suddenly clear up. Your shutter speed has to be fast enough that motion doesn't cause any kind of weird stitching, because you basically take 16 photos and the computer composites them together into a single image. So my 50 megapixel sensor effectively becomes a 200 megapixel sensor. So we're gonna see how this works. I'm gonna take one shot, just standard, crop to a 1:3 ratio, and then we'll take another shot of same framing as a pixel shift. So kind of go through that real quick. Okay, there's the first shot. Then over in the drive mode, basically going to take a pixel shift, and it's going to take them as short as possible. Nine, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And now we'll compare the two.
Just like I said in the video, because the water is moving, the pixel shifting process makes it look like a long exposure shot, which I don't mind, but it's definitely a big difference between the two. And actually, even though the pixel shift is an enormous file, when you actually jump in there and zoom in on things, I was able to pull out more detail in just the standard raw file than I was in the pixel shift, only because once you stitch it together, it has to save it as a DNG or a JPEG or something like that, so it compresses it. And so you're unable to get as much detail as you can out of a raw file. So there's a little bit of a sacrifice there if you want the editability of the raw, or if you want the size of the pixel shift. So maybe there's a way to edit in camera before the photos, but I guess all I can say is the experiment continues.
So when I first arrived, the conditions were like ideal. The light was beaming through some of these clouds, and so I rushed out, took quite a few photos, but it was so rapid and I had to work quickly, so I didn't have time to really film much. I feel bad because some of the pictures turned out kind of cool. It's just I don't have any actual footage of me taking them, but I'll share them. Let me know what you think of them. You know, it's when you're dealing with conditions like this where the clouds are moving super quickly because of the strong winds, you just, you can't mess around with cameras too often. You just have to rush out with the most important camera, which is my photo camera. So, apologize if doesn't, tell a good story, but it's just kind of the situation. So there's one final shot I want to try to get. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. This is, unless I was on the other side of this fence, but this is all restricted areas. I think maybe my best bet is to try to shoot between some bushes here. So there's this shot of this cliffside. Kind of lines up nicely. I don't know how to explain it. I'm sure you'll be able to see it from the photo. But it's like between these bushes. I'm gonna have to throw my long lens and my teleconverter on to try to frame it up. And the reason I want this shot so much is because on the other side of the water, there's this beam of light hitting the valley. Okay, with the clouds over the hillside right there, let's make sure you can see that. Clouds over the hillside, there's two groups of bushes, a shrubbery, the sagebrush on either side. Literally framed between them, I can see in one corner here the edge of the sagebrush. I don't love it. I don't have a choice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to throw a polarizer on, see if I can cut through some of the atmosphere that's causing a lot of haze in the background of the shot. This could help diminish that quite a bit. Hopefully it does, because that's where the interest is. Right there in the background. Doing everything we can to help this shot. And just like that, we are done with our final shot. I gotta get myself some shooting gloves. This is ridiculous. Painfully ridiculous. I'll meet you back at the car. And just like that, we're back in the car. Feels like the temperature has gone up a good 15 degrees. My nose is still beet red and my fingers are numb. But we're warm, and that's the important thing. I want to thank you so much for watching. Happy New Year. Hope you had a wonderful celebration, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.